So thank you, Alex, for recording. So my name is Kaity, and I am the Chief Operating Officer for Build Carolina. And so Build Carolina is our overarching parent nonprofit, under which we have 3 different programs, and Develop Carolina is one of those programs. It's also our newest program. We started our first cohort in January of 2022. We are now in cohort number 3, looking towards the next one, which starts July 10th. Little sneak peek spoiler there. And we are so excited to share more about this awesome program with you all. And I will now pass it along to Alex.
Awesome. Thanks, Kaity. Hey, everybody. My name's Alex Martin. I'm currently located in Melbourne, Florida, and I'm the technical director for Build Carolina, which means I handle the web platform and content. And right now I'm also the lead instructor for our Develop Carolina program. So we'll be spending lots of time together. Super, super excited you're here. We'll dig into more about kind of my role and what to expect from our program as we get in later to this session. I'm going to hand it off to Cara.
Thanks, Alex. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cara Davis Anderson, and I am the Apprenticeship Coordinator for Develop Carolina. I am right now located in Columbia, South Carolina. I will be between every part of the state, between Columbia, Orangeburg, and Charleston for like the next 2 months while I'm doing some renovations. I actually just joined the team a week ago. So as you all are learning, I am learning as well. And I look forward to continuing to learn with everyone. So with that said, I'll pass it to Lauren.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. I've been on the Build Carolina team for over a year now on the Carolina Code School side, which is our in-person boot camp up in Greenville, South Carolina. So that's where I am. And I am shifting into helping support engaging our volunteers who support Develop Carolina and our other programs and make that more of my focus. So I'm excited to hear. It's my first apprenticeship info session too, so we'll all learn together.
Awesome. I love this. It's usually just me and Alex. I'm so excited. We've got some more people on the call now. Awesome. Well, what I'm going to do to kick us off is I'm going to share my screen, have a handful of slides just to guide us through our conversation today. And then at a certain point, I'll pass it over to Alex, who's going to dive into the curriculum side of the program. And then, of course, as I mentioned, save plenty of time for Q&A at the end. So bear with me 1 second while I get my screen all set up to share. Alrighty. Okay. Oops, sorry, 1 second. All right. Okay. Lauren, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen? Awesome. Great. Thanks so much. All right. So welcome again to the Develop Carolina Apprenticeship Info Session. So here's a little rundown of our agenda tonight. So we'll start with what is Develop Carolina, of course. We'll talk you through what to expect as part of the program. We'll walk through the details of what your schedule would look like as an apprentice. We'll also talk during that time about the curriculum and how we split up our weeks. We're going to talk about important upcoming dates, so some deadlines and some things that are coming up for that next cohort. And then we'll talk about next steps. So to dive right on in, who here, by using the raise hand function in Zoom or throwing it in the chat, is familiar with an apprenticeship model? All right, we've got 1, 2, all right, 3, all right, great. So for those of you who don't have much familiarity with that, don't worry, we're going to dive into that as well. But I always like to make sure that I'm not, going over something that everybody here is already aware of. So thank you for weighing in very quickly. So what is Develop Carolina? So we are a 6-month paid full-time apprenticeship program for new software developers who are ready to enter into the field as professional programmers. And so what this means by ready to enter into the field is that you have either, you have the technical skills that you've gained either through independent learning. Maybe you're like Kevin and you're a boot camp grad. Maybe you have some college or a 2 or 4 year degree. We don't really care where you gained the education. We just care that you have the skills. And so to help you kind of picture where and how we fit into this career journey, we have this lovely visual. And so you all may be here, and I know a couple of you have already expressed this when we were getting to know you earlier, but you may have it be on that, you have that education piece. So you're on the left-hand side, and what you're trying to do is get over to the career piece, that right-hand side. And what happens all too often is that little purple ball in the middle is that you fall off in between. Anybody, does that sound familiar to anyone here? You just struggling to bridge that gap from education to career.
Yeah, very much so.
We've seen this happen a lot. And that's actually why we built this program. So our team collectively has years of experience working with entry level or junior level development talent, most specifically from boot camps. And we just know that this struggle exists, but we also know that there are so many employers out there that also need your talent. And so through this, we have created Develop Carolina. So with the goal of helping you bridge over that gap. We cannot afford to have anyone dropping off between those two. There are so few people who are actually obtaining education in this field, especially in a formalized setting. There are not enough people who are getting, for instance, computer science degrees to keep up with the demand of the industry. And so if you are here on this education side, we desperately need to get you over to the career side. And so Develop Carolina is here to help you do that. So how do we do that? We bridge this gap through a combination of on-the-job training. This training is with a South Carolina-based tech employer. So you get several days a week, which we'll go into schedule in a moment, of time actually embedded within a South Carolina-based tech organization. So you are working, getting that hands-on training, which so often is kind of the cause for that dropping off. It's the catch-22 of I don't have experience as a developer, and no one will hire me until I get that experience as a developer. But if no one hires me, how on earth do I get experience as a developer? Frustrating. And we've seen this so many times, and I can see a few of you nodding as I said that. So, so we're here to break that cycle. And we do, so on the job training, we also do continued education in a virtual classroom. Alex is going to dig into that material in a bit. We also do full stack projects, so real life projects. So over the 6-month time frame of this apprenticeship program, you are going to be partnered with another apprentice, and you're going to be building something from scratch. So you get not only that experience of building something from nothing, but you're getting that experience on the job of working with existing code and existing platforms. We also provide mentorship, and we're going to dive into that a little bit more. I think I have a slide on that, but we have a very robust mentorship program to make sure that you are successful. So you have at least 2 people in addition to our Develop Carolina team that are going to be here to see you succeed. And so what is an apprenticeship? So for those that aren't familiar, apprenticeships are, so a registered apprenticeship is a designation from the Department of Labor, so the Federal Department of Labor, and it is a earn while you learn training model. Typically, this is most closely associated with like manufacturing. You'll hear that a lot, but in tech, we are one of the first here in the state to actually create a program fit for software development. And so you get that job-related education. So in those classroom days each week, You get supervised on the job learning, which means you're going to be paired with a mentor. You'll also typically have, at least one other person at your company that you're reporting to and working alongside. And then you also get a scalable wage progression. We are a very short-term program. Most programs are 2 years long. So that scalable wage progression looks a little different for us, but we will talk about kind of the stipend that you will receive throughout. And you do have to get, your employer host will provide you with one raise at their, the amount is at their discretion throughout that time. Just essentially to make sure that you are getting paid for the training that you're doing. So we'll talk more about that as we get there as well. And so we actually started this program as a fellowship. So our first cohort, we were not a registered apprenticeship, and it was simply because we did not fit the model. Like I said, typically they're 2 years long, they require a lot, and a lot of tech companies were not taking advantage of becoming a registered apprenticeship, simply too much, kind of too heavy of a lift on their end. So what we did is we listened to our tech employers and we listened to the needs of the junior developers that we were working with. And we created this outside of that federal designation because we wanted to focus on that on-the-job training and that learning. And so what happened is we had such great successes in our first cohort that Apprenticeship Carolina, which is our state representative body of the Department of Labor, reached out and said, hey, what you're doing is really cool. We see your results already. Let's make this work. And so by cohort number 2, we were officially a registered apprenticeship. And so we were always getting you paid for your training, but now you're also eligible for support services from the Department of Labor. So this is a little stipend that you can apply for. That's a grant. We also have another layer of kind of regulation. So the Department of Labor regulates what we're doing and ensures, quality. And then you also receive a Journey Worker certification upon completion. So a couple cool things. Oops. Okay. So we're going to dive into how you'd be successful, what we expect from our apprentices, how you'll be successful in an apprenticeship program. So simple, 3 things. One is coming ready to learn. Our entire team is dedicated to making sure that you have all of the resources and all of the things that you need to learn. And all we ask that you do is come in and take advantage of it. So be open to new ways of thinking, be ready to communicate and ask questions, and complete assignments and projects, which again, we'll talk about in a moment. We also want you to be collaborative. The kind of old stereotype of being a developer is sitting, at a computer 8 hours a day, not interacting with anyone, just simply is not true. And so you're going to be working with others, and that is absolutely a key to your success, not only in this program, but in the industry as well. So we're going to give you ways to interact with your peers and others in your cohort and begin to collaborate in meaningful ways. And then also we ask that you be a professional. So simply showing up on time, being nice, abiding by all guidelines and code of conduct that are in place for Develop Carolina and your employer host. And in return, here's how we'll set you up for success. So we'll support you from beginning to end. We're going to do this through a series of check-ins, regular check-ins with you and your entire support team. That mentorship that I mentioned earlier, which includes not only an employer host mentor, so someone at your company that's assigned to mentor you through the program, but also what we call a Develop Carolina advisor, or DCA. And these individuals are not necessarily associated with your employer host, but are volunteers specifically with Develop Carolina. The vast majority of them are now alumni. So folks who've gone through our program are working as developers and are now giving back to help the next set of students that come through our program. So we make sure that you have this layer of support right off the bat. We'll provide you with clear expectations and expected outcomes. And then we also provide you with, as part of that we do a monthly check-in. We'll make sure that we're catering your experience to your needs. So what this means is if you come in with a lot of experience in something that we are covering in our classroom days, or you're gaining experience in a specific topic at work, then we're going to be able to adjust maybe what assignments or projects that you'll need to complete in order to finish the program. And then we also provide career-specific training, of course. So both our classroom curriculum and your on-the-job training are all built around providing you with all of the skills that you need to be successful in your career. And then we say the total package. So we want to make sure that you'll be provided with all of the materials, hardware, tools that you'll need. So there's no, you don't need to purchase a new machine. Your employer host will provide that for you. No textbooks, no anything like that. We just need you and your time and your dedication, and then we'll provide the rest. All right, and I am now going to pass it over to Alex, and I can keep driving the slide deck if you just want to let me know when to advance the slides.
I can do it, Katie. Thanks so much. That's always a mouthful at the beginning of the presentation. Before we talk about the specifics of the program, does anybody have any questions about some of that high-level stuff that Katie discussed? I want to make sure we take a dedicated point here. If you do think of anything, feel free to put it in chat, and we'll make sure we respond to that or any other sorts of questions tonight as we're going through. So let's talk about what your schedule looks like. We split the program up into 2 distinct sections, really kind of 2.5, which we'll talk about in just a minute. The first 3 weeks are what we call our engineering primer. And during this time, you'll be in a classroom with us, with your whole cohort every day. Now, this isn't all day. This isn't collegiate level, 8-10 hours a day in class. We'll spend 2 to 3 hours together going through different topics to prepare you for your first day of work. But during this time each day, we'll spend the mornings in class, and then the afternoons will be your time to work on exercises, assignments, projects, and get to know each other. Hopefully during this time, we all kind of gel as a cohort. That's been our experience so far. And this lets us really tailor what we're front loading in terms of what you're being taught, which we'll talk more about that curriculum in a minute, to match the employer host you're going to. So if we have a really business heavy cohort, then we'll teach you about business. If we have a cohort going into agency work or consulting, we'll teach you what that means, what that looks like, and how you can recognize your value and maximize that on day 1. Once we switch over to week 4, thank you, Katie, that's when we get into the rest of our schedule. And at that point, Mondays and Fridays belong to Develop Carolina, and Tuesdays to Thursdays belong to your host company. So on Monday, it's going to look a lot like every day of that engineering primer. We'll come together for 2 to 3 hours in the morning, talk through a new topic each day, and then the afternoon is yours to spend time on exercises or working on your full stack project, which we'll talk a little more about as well. Tuesday to Thursday, that's a regular day on the job. You are a working full-time software engineer for 8 hours a day, Tuesday to Thursday, working on whatever schedule your team sets. So generally the teams you work with will have some sort of core hours. You'll have meetings, you'll have workshops, you'll have assignments. All of that happens Tuesdays to Thursday for your host company. Fridays, we have something a little bit different. We call it a Friday huddle. And this is when we all come together to discuss some less technical topics. It's not necessarily non-technical, but this is things like maybe financial planning. Since for a lot of folks, moving into tech, salaries will be a big change of lifestyle. We want to make sure you're prepared for talking about negotiating salaries, talking about stock options. We may talk about things like job titles, understanding what career progression looks like, how to grow in the industry, things that are still related to technical work, but we're not talking about coding like we might on Monday. So Fridays, we all come together for our Friday huddle. Again, that's a couple hours in the morning, and then the afternoons are yours to get ahead of the weekend by catching up on your projects and working together on the projects that you're working through. As we get to the end of the program, and this is where I said it's kind of 2.5 sections, those weeks like 20 to 24, depending on how things are going at your host company, we may shift gears a little bit into career prep and job hunt prep, or we may shift gears into saying, hey, let's give some more time to your host company. Sounds like they're going to make you an offer. We're having those conversations. Let's make sure you're focusing on your time on working with them and making a strong impression. So as we make that transition from the apprenticeship into full-time work, we try to help smooth that out as much as we can. So let's talk about the content that we're going to cover and what our curriculum looks like. Our curriculum is broken down into 3 major sections. One is the content. This is what we covered during the engineering primer and during our workshops every Monday. We also have a little bit of customization on Friday with those more soft skills or less technical topics. But this is direct instructional content with lots of resources that you can go follow up on topics that you find interesting. We assign everybody a full stack project. And I say we assign it, that's really kind of a bad way to describe it. We let you design and choose a project. And the way we've run this so far is everybody designs something, everybody pitches their idea, and then we pair folks based on shared interest so that you're working along with a partner. This way, no matter what your host company experience is like, you get the experience of building something from scratch and as part of a team. So you have to work on prioritization, delegation, and figuring out what tasks you want to complete together. And then finally, we have our exercises. These are the assigned resources that we give you on Monday nights and then during the workshop or during the engineering primer on every night that you'll complete throughout the program. And this is how we reinforce the workshop that we do together. So this may be something like building a web server. This may be deploying something on Amazon or Microsoft or both and comparing. But your exercises help really make the content that we go through in the workshop stick. Let's talk a little more about the curriculum itself, because this is always a big question from folks. We start with a really great open source system from our friends at Enoch Collective, which is a consultancy based in Greenville, South Carolina. The Engineer Kit is an open source platform full of really great resources for building strong generalist software engineers. An Engineer Kit has 15 modules, breaks down to over 300 individual learning outcomes, and they have their own resources and exercises that we've helped them build, been part of, and relied on in the past. We add our own custom modules to that. So depending on the interest in the group, let's say somebody's interested in blockchain or Web3, say somebody's interested in AI, which is super popular in the news right now. We'll build our own modules to tailor that content and make sure that you get access to resources for what interests you. We also add the Friday huddle content, so there's less technical topics. We add our own exercises as we found them in the wild, things we've been able to contribute back in Engineer Kit in the past. And we have tailored resources. So if there's something that you're really struggling with, we can always provide additional content above and beyond what Engineer Kit has. Finally, we offer the full stack project. This is that separate project that you build full stack, front end, back end from scratch. And we have lots of pairing practice just as part of our regular practice. So workshop mornings, you'll spend usually 10 to 20 minutes pairing with somebody random from the cohort, working through algorithmic problems and getting to practice both writing code live and talking about code with others. Because just like Katie said earlier, working in software is a team sport. This is not a solo thing where you're going to go heads down on a computer and never talk to anyone. You're going to spend the majority of your day collaborating, and we want you to get that practice right away as part of our program. So our ultimate goal is to create what we call T-shaped developers. Has anyone ever heard that term before? There's a variant on this sometimes called paint drip developers, and we'll talk about why that is. The idea is that we're going to provide the top bar of the T. That's a broad exposure to the software industry. This means you're not just coming in with highly technical knowledge, you're also coming in with a little bit of business acumen. You're getting to understand how companies find funding. What do developers do to make the company money? How can you maximize your value to a team? What do the other people that you work with do? I can't tell you how many professional software engineers I've worked with who've been in the industry for 5+ years and never sat down and talked to a product owner about what that title means, or talk to the CEO about what they do all day. We're going to help introduce you to those topics so that when you join any team, you're better prepared than folks who are coming in with an exclusively technical lens. While you're on the job, you're going to specialize, and that becomes the vertical bar of your T. That's that deep knowledge that you'll get by working directly on large projects with your host company on a team as a full-time software engineer. So we provide that general exposure that you may or may not get on the job, depending on how long you work. And then your company provides that specialization in whatever their language or stack is. We sometimes hear this T referred to as paint drip developers because some people specialize in multiple verticals, but that general knowledge is what forms the baseline. And that's what we're really trying to provide for you.
Awesome. And Alex, before I take back over, because the next slide is moving on from curriculum, could you talk a little bit about our approach in regards, we always get the question, like, what tech stack, like what languages are taught, or what languages do I need to know to come into the program? Can you talk a little bit about why that really doesn't matter?
Absolutely. So Katie spoiled by surprise. I was going to build it up and tell you need all these languages, but she jumped ahead of me. That's great. Your tech stack, your background in particular languages or frameworks does not matter. Looking at this T, remember the exposure that we're giving you is that generalist software knowledge. So the topics that we're going to talk about are highly technical, but we're not going into specific languages. We're not going to teach you how to write JavaScript. We're not going to teach you how to do React or Angular or Java or .NET or PHP. We're going to let you bring your technical skills to the table, and we're going to help give you the tools to refine them. So when you're choosing your full stack project, you'll get to choose along with your partner what language and frameworks you want to use for that, and we'll support you in it. We've got lots of folks available both with Develop Carolina and through the mentor network that we have with Build Carolina, that whatever you want to work on, we can find somebody who can help partner with you and help support you in that. The specialization that you do on the job will be dependent on that job. So in the past, we've worked with teams that are working on .NET. We've worked with teams working on Java, worked with teams working on JavaScript, full stack. We worked with teams working in PHP. Any language, any background is fine. We are a technically agnostic program. So don't worry about like, oh, I need to cram Java before I come to the program, or I need to cram JavaScript for my technical interview. All of that is going to be agnostic, and we're going to rely on your background and try to help support you as best we can. So no worries about which stacks you're going to be learning here. You'll learn whichever stack you want to learn.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. All right. So the next few slides are just a couple of our alumni that I always like to highlight. And here's a few quotes that they provided us at the end of their program. So this is Jeremy. He was in our first cohort. He is now a software engineer full-time and is also serving, or has served in the past, as that DCA, so that Develop Carolina advisor. So we love to see when it comes full circle. He was formerly a music teacher and learned to code. I believe he went to Trident Technical College in Charleston and got a 2-year degree and then came to our program. Same background actually with Ariana. She also went to got a 2-year degree and formerly from food and bev. And so she decided after years in that industry that she was ready to be done and wanted to pursue a more technical career and provide for her family. And she's done just that. She is also working full-time as a software engineer, and she is a DCA as well. And then love talking about Matt Thornton. He is just had his second promotion since he graduated in June of 2022, so last year. He is now a tech lead, and he is also a DCA. So love when these folks come full circle. But Matt is someone definitely, they're all worth getting to know, that's for sure. All right, let's talk about some important dates. So we have applications we're taking currently up until around May 12th. So we leave our applications open year round, but by the 12th is when we're going to really start kind of making some big decisions. And so we want to make sure that if you apply, it is by then, so that we can make sure to review your application and to get you through to the interview process. Because by May 26th, we want to have all the interviews completed. We are not waiting until then. So we're actually going to start doing some application or some interviews with the current applicants very soon. So the sooner you apply, the sooner you may get through the interview process. And this process is 2 steps. So you'll have actually maybe 3. We're throwing a little something in there that we're adding as a screening piece. So stay tuned for that piece. But as far as the actual interviews go, you'll have a non-technical interview with either myself or Cara, or both of us, if you're lucky. And then you'll have a technical interview with Alex. So Alex, will you talk a little bit about that technical interview, because it always sounds scarier than it actually is?
I will, and I won't pump anybody up or play any jokes on this one. We keep our technical interview as chill as possible. We're not going to hammer you on data structures and algorithms. We're not going to make you go through leak code problems. We're really focused on how do you communicate about technical topics. That's what our technical interview is looking for. So the way I usually split it up is half and half. First half is just a conversation about your background, what languages have you been exposed to, what sorts of things do you like to build? And then the second half of our interview, we'll open up a coding problem together. It's very simple. It's not going to be anything on like the blind 75 or any of the high-end leak codes, just something straightforward. And in whatever language you're comfortable in, even if it's just talking through the problem, we'll solve that together. We'll talk through it. We'll trade off driving. We'll pair program through that problem. The goal, again, is to focus on how do you communicate about technical topics. So in some cases, people see a problem they recognize and they write it in 3 different languages because they've memorized that. And that's fine. In other cases, folks see it and go, well, I don't know exactly how to do this, but let's talk through what I would do. Let me think through the steps. And we'll kind of take a comment-driven approach to solving that problem together. There's no expectation that you get the right or wrong answer. There isn't a right or wrong answer. But the goal of these interviews is always so we can learn more about you. One thing that I always like to stress about our interview process is we never say no. We sometimes say not right now. So if we feel like you're almost there, but there's some things we'd like to see, we're going to give you that feedback. If we think you're really far off, but we can give you some steps and help support you on your path, we'll give you that feedback. And in some cases, if we think you're ready to go get a job and we can't really give you a lot of support because you've already outpaced our program, we'll give you that feedback and help connect you with somebody who can review your resume and get you out in the job pool. But our goal is to support you as part of this program, even if it's just the interview process.
Great. Thank you so much, Alex. So with that being said, too, I encourage all of you to apply. If you're not sure, it doesn't hurt to apply. Like he said, we'll give you some next steps and point you in the right direction. And we've had lots of folks who have applied and not gotten in the first time, and we've given them some steps to take, and they have come back and reapplied and we're able to accept them at that point. So it's very exciting to see when that happens as well. So after your interviews are completed, we'll make our final selection of our apprentices by June 9th. So you'll hear one way or the other by June 9th. By June 16th, we want to have all of our apprentices matched with employer hosts. And then on July 10th, the apprenticeship begins. So exciting stuff. So if you have not yet and are interested in applying, again, I would encourage you to do that, even if you're not sure. You can go to developcarolina.org and there is an application link there that will take you to a very, fairly short, not very intimidating, I don't think, application. And then once we get that, we'll review over it. And then here in the next couple of weeks, we will begin setting up interviews. After that, we'll make our decision and let you know what next steps to follow after you've been accepted. And that's all I have, y'all. I know that was a lot of information, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can look at all your beautiful faces, and would love to dig into some questions. So, Alex, I see there's one already in the chat. You want to go for that one?
We do, yeah. Barry asked a great question that I want to highlight just so everybody benefits from our answer here. Barry asked if over the internship, you feel like you could use some help writing better code in the specific language you are using, would the mentors help with that? And the answer is a resounding yes. If you're not connected with a mentor who specializes in the languages you specialize in, we have access to a really great pool of volunteers through SC Codes, which is another of the Build Carolina sort of family of programs. And we'd be happy to connect you with mentors over there who can help you in pretty much any modern and some not so modern languages. So if you're looking to refine your C skills or you want to dig into something newer like Rust, we've got folks who can help you with that on all sides. We'll just connect you with them kind of on an as-needed basis. And if that's something you want as an ongoing relationship, you're welcome to pursue that as well.
So that's during your apprenticeship.
Correct. Yeah. We have those folks kind of on tap. And so they can come in and help if you say, like I said, if you wanted to build your full stack project with a Rust backend, we could connect you with somebody who could help you with that.
Is that something that you would have access to afterward, or is it just for the apprenticeship program? Because it sounds kind of awesome.
To be honest, you have access to that right now, Kevin. or anybody else. SC Codes is a free open program. We have lots of mentors there who are happy to help, ready to help. So if that's something that you're looking for, I'd encourage you to check that out. I hate to distract you from Develop Carolina with another program, but that's our biggest mentor pool. And those are the folks who we rely on to help newer folks who are looking to learn.
No, that's great. Yeah, I know that after my camp, continuing to learn and pick up new things. And I'm always worried about learning new things on my own and not necessarily learning best practices. And that's, one of the bigger things that's kind of scary with as I'm learning.
Yeah. If it makes you feel better, I've been doing this professionally full-time for over 10 years and as a hobby and for funsies for like 25, which is kind of scary to say. And the idea of best practices is good, but a lot of the internet is just smoke and mirrors and duct tape and chewing gum. So if you can make something work, that's the first step. We'll help you make it right after that.
Awesome. Great question, Barry. Thank you. Desiree asks, I'm currently located in Georgia, just a few hours away. If I've moved to South Carolina, can I attend the apprenticeship? Absolutely. And actually, we give preference to folks who are located in South Carolina or willing to relocate to South Carolina. But you do not have to in order to apply or be accepted into the program. So we currently have a student in Maryland. So everybody else is located here locally. And because we are funded by the state, or we have grant funding from the state, we do have to kind of give South Carolina residents a little bit of preference. We are, based here, and our goal is to grow the workforce here. But because you'll be working for a South Carolina-based company, we can definitely make that work, even if you aren't local. Also, most of it is remote. So we have almost all of our employers to date have not required you to be in office. That could always change. We're always recruiting new employer hosts. But if that is the case and you are not local, we'll try our best to put you with an employer host who is remote as best we can, or someone located near you.
And I can take Adam's question next. Adam asks, are there certain ways we can improve ourselves and our experience to increase the likelihood of getting into this apprenticeship sooner rather than later? Adam, that's a great question. We hear that a lot. The honest answer is just practice. Keep writing code, keep doing the things that you're doing. If you're interested in practicing for the technical interview, you can go and do some of those algorithmic problems. I call them toy problems. Sites like Code Wars, HackerRank, LeetCode are great places to go and sort of refine your skills. But at the end of the day, the qualities that we're selecting for come down to experience and communication. So there's not really a secret way to prep or a certain question or, learn how to fizz buzz in under 30 seconds. Nothing like that. That'll get you in the door. It's all about both how you match with our host companies. So if your goals align with the goals of the companies that we're placing right now, and also your communication, how well you fit with the cohort that we're putting together.
Thanks, Alex. Oh, Barry, you're in Far Rockaway. The only reason I know about Far Rockaway is because I'm a big Law and Order SVU fan, and they talk about Far Rockaway on occasion. Not in the best light, probably not. Actually, just kidding. I think one of the detectives is from there. Anyways, but yes, Barry, you're still welcome to apply. We will we'll just take that into consideration. Awesome. Well, we have about 15 minutes left for questions. So does anybody have any other questions about the program? I'll share while y'all are thinking a little bit about our success rates so far. So to date, we've had 21 graduates and 19 of them have been offered full-time roles with their host company. So the vast majority and kind of the goal for our employer host is also to get you hired and to transition you into full-time employment. Those that haven't, it's not come down to technical skills. So we definitely, we do a lot of professional coaching and things. And if you're able to, show up and communicate and approach things in that manner, 9 times out of 10, well, truly, because 90%, 90-ish%. So 9 times out of 10, you will have a spot at that employer host company. Again, I can't promise you that moving like for future cohorts, but to date, we've had great success with that. And James, to address your question, is there a specific number of open spots? We are working on finalizing employer hosts for the next cohort. So that will depend, that will determine how many spots we have open. But usually we've seen between 12 and 15 are our actually between 11, we have 11 currently, 11 and 15, with 15 being kind of our max, just because we are so high touch and because we provide such a level of mentorship and individual care for each of our apprentices that right now that's all our capacity is as well.
And Adam, I can answer your question again. We seem to be lining up here. Adam asks, assuming we get into the apprenticeship, would the companies be first come, first serve, or would we potentially have a choice leaning towards a certain company over the other? We get that question a lot, and it's honestly a little bit of a chicken or the egg sort of question. As we accept people into the program, we make sure those folks have a place to go. We don't want to accept people who then don't have a host company. So if you are accepted into the apprenticeship, we'll talk to you about what roles are available and get a sense of what might be the best fit. That may be based on your location. That may be based on the type of work you'd like to do. That may be based on what we have available. But we'll have that conversation with you. There's never a mandate that you go and work at a particular company if there's not an alignment there for you. But that may mean that you can't participate in this cohort if that's the only space we have available. So we will have that conversation with you. And if for some reason it's not a good fit right now, just like I said earlier, no, not right now is an okay answer. And that may result in deferring you to another cohort or offering you another opportunity in the future. Yeah, thanks for asking that. That always comes up too.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah, great questions, y'all. Anyone else? I want to make sure we get to everyone, but also if we end up wrapping up a little bit early, no worries. We won't keep you on here in silence. But if you think of anything later on, feel free to reach out to us via email. You all should, I believe you all would have the contact information, but we'll drop it in the chat as well. Alex is on it. And so grab our emails there as well, and then we can answer any questions that may come up between now and the next, really anytime. But if you have specific questions about the next cohort, let us know, and we'll make sure that we get you on the right track to get into that applicant pool. Wonderful. All right. Well, I know I kind of teased this at the front, so you can definitely don't have to, but would love if anybody else wants to share. I know we had a few people share at the beginning of kind of where you are in your educational journey and what brought you to be interested in this program. Would love to continue to hear from you all for our last 12 minutes. No pressure. And I do see we have one other question came in from Barry, so I'll answer that while y'all think if you want to share or not. So is the expectation to continue at the company you intern for, or can you intern and take that experience elsewhere? So we are a right to work state. And so there is no obligation that you have to stay with that host company. What we found, however, is that you've put in a lot of time, you've put in 6 months of work, and you are now fully onboarded and really feeling good, usually, into a place where you're comfortable. So it's been a very natural progression. However, you are not, there's no, nothing binding you to that.
And I want to highlight one thing. Nobody has asked this, but in the spirit of making sure that we're all aligned, when Kaity described the apprenticeship, one thing that I want to really highlight is we try to draw a distinction between what we offer and a traditional internship. And the way I like to describe that is with an internship, you may be the person going to get the coffee, right? You may be the runner. You may be there to learn. Nothing wrong with that. It's a great experience. It's a great way to get to know folks at the company. But we draw a pretty big distinction between that sort of work and our apprenticeship. where we specifically place folks at companies in roles where they are needed to do work. So from day one, you'll be doing the real work of a software engineer, not interning, not looking over somebody's shoulder, not supporting someone else, but doing the work, getting paid as a software engineer. We think that's really critical so that when you leave this program, you don't go somewhere else and say, yeah, I was an intern for 6 months, but you can go somewhere and say, yeah, for the past 6 months, I've been working on this project. I've been working with this team. I've been doing this kind of work. And that really shines through as you progress either at your host company, if you choose to stay there and there's availability, or at your next job or your next opportunity.
Yes, thank you for that distinction. Yeah, you'll hear a lot of, there's a lot of different words out there floating around, and there's like a small A apprenticeship and then like the big A apprenticeship also. And so it can get a little confusing, but we want to always emphasize that this is a paid, position, paid program. Speaking of, let's talk about that. Usually someone asks and then I get reminded. So as far as the pay goes, we require each employer host to pay you a minimum of $15,000 throughout your time with them. So 24 weeks. It comes out because you're working with them 24 hours a week for 24 weeks. It comes out to about $26 an hour. And so that's always something too, I always like to be very upfront with. We know that is, that is not always enough for folks. And we just want to always throw that out there, that is our minimum requirement. Some employer hosts may choose to pay more, but we've seen pretty consistently them paying right at $26 an hour for that time. But you are also a contract employee. So you would be a 1099 employee, which means that, you get that full amount. You still have to pay taxes on it, talk to your CPA or whoever. But you do get that at least kind of upfront while you're going through the program, and then hopefully transitioning into full-time employment and then making a better wage at the end. Any questions about that? All right. Well, y'all, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you spending some time with us and learning more about the program. I hope I see everybody's names pop up on the application soon. I know I see a few names already that I recognize. Who here has already applied? Okay.
I've applied.
Beautiful.
Lauren told me about this.
Yes. Love it. So glad to see that. Yes. Okay, wonderful. So those who haven't, apply. And those who, once you are in the pool, we're going to be reaching out really, really soon. So stay tuned in the next, I would say, week or so for some next steps, and then we'll go from there. But again, if you have any questions, reach out to us at any time, but we will go ahead and wrap up, and thank you all again for being here. All righty, everybody.
Thanks.
Have a great night.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Have a great night.
Hey, before we wrap, okay, question answered. I wanted to make sure Monclavis didn't have a question because their hand was still up, but they have logged out, so
Thank you.
problem solved.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, y'all.